Today is October 17th, 2022, and this is your daily Half-Life 3 update. There is no news about Half-Life 3. So having seen the Rings of Power, which I'm not going to talk about my thoughts about that just yet, it's something that I see happening with this and other things, is people always use canon as they basically just use canon as an excuse for why they don't like something. Honestly, it's a failure of literary criticism. They don't like something, but they don't really fully understand why they don't like it because they're not smart enough. So they just it breaks canon. They do this for everything: superhero movies, stuff that are based on comic books, stuff that are, adaptations of whatever. And it's just a really flawed argument, especially when you deal with Lord of the Rings, because, some people might not even know this, but Tolkien didn't publish the Silmarillion. That was his son, Christopher Tolkien, who published the Silmarillion. He arranged that book based on his father's writings. So you could view the Silmarillion as not canon. Sure, Tolkien wrote this stuff, but you can't be for sure if that was his final intention, because he was always changing stuff, and he had conflicting information. I think they mentioned that in the foreword for the Silmarillion, that there might be conflicting information, that stuff that contradicts itself in this book. And I don't know, people just hark on canon too much when it's kind of in a way irrelevant to an adaptation, because again, it's an adaptation. If you're just going to make a beat-by-beat recreation of something, that seems pointless to me, because the original exists, right? It's like that, live-action remake of The Lion King that they made a couple years ago, which is basically a beat-for-beat remake of the original cartoon. Why make that? If it's exactly the same, why make it, and why would I go watch it? Why would I watch something new that's exactly the same? If I had any desire to see The Lion King again, which I don't have any desire to see The Lion King, I would watch the original. Because the remake isn't bringing anything new or different to the table, so what's the point? I think, didn't the Vince Vaughn Psycho, wasn't that a shot-for-shot remake as well, I believe? What's the point of that? I didn't watch the first Psycho and think, what this movie needs? This movie needs Vince Vaughn. It's perfect, but it would be much better with Vince Vaughn. Change nothing else except Vince Vaughn. Then it's perfect. No one thought that. And then there's also the other aspect of people complaining about canon and how stuff contradicts when they... and it's not trying to be gatekeeping here, but I bet a lot of the people who complain about Rings of Power have not read the Silmarillion, have not read the expanded stuff. I bet there's a good deal of people who haven't even read, The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings books. Because I tried to read the Silmarillion. That's a tough thing to read. Okay, I doubt all these people complaining about canon have actually read the Silmarillion. They do a little bit of research, and they find out that something contradicts something that Tolkien wrote, and then they use that as their jumping off point to hate on the show, when there's probably other reasons why they hate on the show. Maybe casting reasons why they hate the show. But, that's also extremely stupid. But yeah, I don't know. This was very rambling. But yeah, it's just interesting, because canon is it's also a very arbitrary thing. Because you could view the Star Wars sequels as not canon. You could view all current Star Wars stuff as not canon, because it has no involvement from George Lucas. Maybe Dave Filoni, but was it decided that Dave Filoni is now the canon guy instead of George Lucas? George Lucas did all that stuff. He wrote and directed, direct all the movies, but most of them. So they're obviously treating Disney is obviously treating all the modern Star Wars stuff as canon because that works for them. But I mean, back in the day, the extended universe was canon, maybe, except when extended universe contradicted other extended universe stuff. Now, and then there was, I'm sure there's probably stuff that Disney has put out that's been contradicted by later stuff that Disney put out. Because like that Lost Stars novel that I read, which was actually a pretty good novel, Lost Stars. I liked reading that. I'm sure that's been contradicted at some point because it's so long ago and it's pretty much been forgotten. They're not referencing any of those characters in this anymore. So, yeah. Basically, the point is you need to be better at criticizing things. You can't just hate something because it breaks canon. I mean, who cares? I feel like it's an adaptation. It's like that's the point, right? What I feel like is most important if you're adapting something, and like let's stick with Tolkien for example. What I would think would be most important with adapting one of Tolkien's works is like the larger picture stuff, the themes and messages and whatever that are in it, and that's really all that matters. Because the Lord of the Rings trilogy, that wasn't a faithful adaptation of the book. It changed a lot of stuff. There were major characters gone, and Arwen's role was expanded on. Switched. She did a lot of stuff that Glorfindel, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, did a lot of stuff he did. Like, he was a major character that was just kind of gone. Tom Bombadil was gone. A lot of people who read Lord of the Rings kind of agree that it's a little okay to get rid of Tom Bombadil. And the whole ending of the book was gone as well. People complain about Return of the King having multiple endings, but they didn't even have the real ending. They didn't have the Scouring of the Shire. That was the actual ending to the book, and in my opinion, I thought it was very important to the story of Lord of the Rings that it ends that way. So that would be my only real complaint of something that wasn't in the movies, that was in the books. Because there's also the misguided belief that one book equals one movie, and that's just not the case. In my opinion, Lord of the Rings is 6, maybe 5 movies. Because it is technically 6 books, there's many different... Lord of the Rings is 1 book, 3 books, and 6 books all at once. But yeah, in my opinion, Lord of the Rings is 6 movies or 5 movies, maybe. And I mean, I think The Hobbit is 2 movies. People were criticizing the 2 or 3 movies for The Hobbit, saying like, nah, it should be 1 movie, but no, I think The Hobbit would have worked best as 2 movies. I think there's a lot of stuff you need in there, and some of the stuff that Peter Jackson added in The Hobbit, especially the stuff revolving around Gandalf, I know that breaks canon the most, but it does kind of feel necessary. It's a little weird that Gandalf just wanders away from the story and we don't see him again. Like, okay guys, I'm leaving. I'm gonna go do stuff. I'll come back at some point. And then you just don't see him again. That just seems weird. I think you gotta do something. But yeah. And I mean, The Hobbit should be played by Ian Holm. But you can't get old Ian Holm to do that. So you recast him with Martin Freeman, even though Bilbo's not supposed to age pretty much at all between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. But whatever. And that has been your daily Half-Life 3 update for October 17th, 2022.